Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this rainy, a little bit chilly spring day. I'm so thrilled because the rain will definitely help get my flowers to grow, which is fun. I got a bunch of seeds this year, and I've never been much of a gardener, although my mom's side of the family, they're all farmers. And it just wasn't my bag. So slowly but surely as I get older, you know, I'm starting to really enjoy flowers and putting them in. And I have some really great advice from a friend of mine, which was wherever to plant them, and I've been doing this for a few years now, wherever I plant them, to plant them so that I get a really good view. So that when I look out my windows or I drive into my driveway, that I see these beautiful flowers, that I don't just make it all about somebody else. So if you don't know who I am and you're, not interested in my flowers, I'm Rita Hickman. I'm a body-mind expert. I'm a Shiatsu massage therapist, and my specialty is coaching women who are in toxic relationships. I help them get stronger mentally, emotionally, and physically so that they can take their power back, so that they don't feel so helpless and knocked down, and they can either stay or go or stand up for themselves or, hey, Kelly, or whatever works best for them. That's my job, to help women get to that place where they really feel complete and in control of their lives again. Hey, Jody. So today's topic is about how to not take narcissism personally. I've been around the spiritual circuit and personal growth circuit for a very long time. And they give the advice very often, well, just don't take things personally. And typically this is said, mansplained to me about, well, you just don't take things personally. Right. And they're the exact ones who take everything most personally. Hey, Barbara, nice to see you. The people who tell you not to take things personally are the ones who are always overreacting and always tripping over themselves and taking out their aggravation on other people because they're not taking anything personally. So I had a good friend of mine who once said that everything is personal. Hey, Heather. And it really is, because when something happens, it is a personal experience to you. And it's very, very hard not to take things personally, to not take it as in, what did I do? How can I change it? How do I stop it? How do I manipulate the situation? How do I control the situation so that it stops controlling me? That is so natural. That is so normal. Because when we're feeling victimized and hurt, the first thing we want to do is control everything. Because, of course, it feels personal. It hurts. It hurts your heart. It hurts your skin. It stresses everything out. Your stomach gets upset. You get headaches. Of course, you're going to take it personally. So the problem is the mansplaining never explained how to not take things personally. And to me, that's much more helpful, not just don't take things personally. So how do you not take things personally? So I'll give you some information about how the subconscious works and how we end up, hey, Maggie, and how we end up kind of in a loop of trying to control things around us. And Kellyanne's here too. Awesome. So we tend to get stuck or trapped from the first time that we didn't feel loved. So if we were small or you came from a dysfunctional family, and many of us did in some way. In fact, the majority of people came from dysfunctional situations. Hey, Cecilia. So the majority of people came from situations where probably when they were young, they didn't receive the love that they needed, especially when they needed it. I have a very specific memory of my dad, who was the biggest challenge in my family, who had, emotional and mood disorders. Hey, Linda, dropping me off at the daycare center and leaving me there, and I was terrified. So, of course, for me, that's a very vivid memory of a time when I didn't get the love that I needed. Now, we tend to, when we're in that place, usually we're children. Hey, Ro. Usually we're children from a child's mind, from a child's perspective, and that's how we're looking at it. So what we do when we feel like we haven't gotten something, like we haven't gotten the love, is we frantically try to find ways to get that love back. So we try all sorts of tactics, even if they're, just in our mind. I remember one time I was weed whacking around the garden, and I was older this time, and it was hot out, and it was a large garden, and it was down at the, end of our property, and the extension cords, the little yellow ones, they don't, not the thick ones, the cheap ones that weren't good for you, had been electrical taped, a million times together. They went all the way down from the garage, down like an acre. They'd always come unplugged. I was so angry and hurt and frustrated that I was asked to be doing something that was beyond my capability. And, and I sat there thinking to myself, I hope I faint. I hope I get heat stroke or heat exhaustion, and then they'll take me to the hospital, and then they'll understand that this is too hard for me. So these are the sorts of things that we think about when we're children. We come up with all sorts of schemes and imaginations. I'm going to run away. I'm going to, slam my door, and then they'll listen to me. Then they'll understand. But here's the deal with people's emotions. In reality, what happened, someone got upset. They had a bad day. They had a mental whatever. They had issues, and they took their love away from us. Maybe they were distracted. We tried all of these internal emotional tactics, all of these things that we tried, which just made it worse many times and caused people to, move further away from us. And finally, after they moved away and they calmed down and they got into a better space, then they would come back into our lives. Now, what we did then is we looked at the tactics that we tried and said, aha, if I do these things, if I, faint, if I cry, if I get angry, if I, smile and people please, if I just do better, if I am better, then they will love me. The thing is people don't love you because of anything that you do. They love you because they feel love. And they don't love you, or they don't behave in a loving way because they don't feel love. Typically because they're not in a good space and they don't feel good. But remember, we're still looped into that age. We're still kind of emotionally trapped and hijacked by those first times that we didn't get the love that we wanted. And so we're still sort of attached to those tactics that we tried. And the one that we thought must have worked, and mine was, if I'm just nice enough, if I'm just good enough to people, if I just do more, if I just give more, then maybe they'll love me. We sit there and think in our child minds that it's cause and effect, that if I do this, if I'm just a better little girl, that then my dad will love me, then my mom will love me, then the people around me will love me, and then they'll keep me safe and they won't make me scared and their love will come back. But in reality, it was nothing that you did. It was nothing that you said. It was nothing that you tried or even thought about that brought love back into your life. It was because the person on the other side was finally able to feel loving enough that they could be present to you. So the way to not take other people's narcissism personally is to recognize that there is nothing you can say or do, no tactic that has ever worked to make someone else love us. It's not our fault. It never was our fault. It never will be our fault, because relationships are between two human beings, and they each have a responsibility for their own love, their own emotion, their own openness, their own compassion and caringness, irregardless of what's going on around them. One of the things you've probably learned is the only way to have control in a situation is to take control of how you feel, is to own and take ownership of, this is how I feel, what am I going to do about it? Because as soon as we start to look to other people, they're going to fail us. We're going to be heartbroken. They're going to devastate us. They're going to punch us in the gut. Maybe only 1 out of 50 people will be able to be present for you. And there are those people, those magical times when you're suffering and struggling and crying in the corner, that someone will come and say, hey, what's going on? How can I help? There are those magical times, but the majority of them is people are way too wrapped up in their own life experience, just trying to handle their own emotions, their own issues, that they most of the time don't even see you. Or if they do see you, they don't want anything to do with you. I spent at least over a decade trying to finally express my emotions when I was younger, in my 20s, and time after time I'd go crying to someone and emoting to someone, and they couldn't be there for me. I'd sit there practically with a red light above my head saying, please help me. And nobody would come, even when I was a kid in school. And it really is not personal. That's how you don't take it personally. You recognize that other people have just as many issues as you do, and that you may be stuck in trying a tactic that never actually worked in the first place. So if you keep trying tactics, it's not that something will eventually work. It's that eventually the tides will change. Mercury will no longer be in retrograde. The moon will no longer, be a supermoon, or the tides will change. Something will happen, and the energy, the big energy, will shift. It's not saying you don't have an impact on the situation. You absolutely do. We have tons of impact from our thoughts, which help create the physical reality and circumstances around us, to the choices that we make us feel bad or good, to the energy that we give off because we've made good choices. Those absolutely influence the situation. But my rule of thumb, especially when I'm confused or upset or desperately trying to fix something, is I say, you know what? This is way bigger than my couple tablespoons of gray matter of conscious mind can comprehend or understand. It's way bigger. It has to do with things I don't even know are happening. It has to do with things which I have no control over, the stars and the sun and the moon and the weather and gravity and life in general. So many things that we have no control over are impacting how someone is treating you. Your job is to take care of and put your emotions as a very high priority. Because whether you're perfect in every way, or whether you are the biggest train wreck that's anybody's ever met, people will love you or not love you based on them, not based on you. And this is how narcissists are able to find people to love them. They actually have some of the best relationships, not intimate, loving relationships, but they're actually treated some of the best of anybody because they're so mean that the only people that will tolerate them are people who are extremely loving and compassionate, unless they find another narcissist, and then it's World War III. They tend to actually have better relationships because they attract the really nice, wonderful, kind, supportive, compassionate, loving people, because nobody else will put up with it. So it's not who you are that gets you love. It's not what you do that gets you love. It's about aligning yourself with the people who are capable of loving, who have the ability to love, and understand and know how to love themselves and how to create love in themselves so they have the ability to love you. So stop trying. You really can't take it personally because it really does have absolutely nothing to do with you. Hey, Jamie. And the only reason that you keep trying is because when you were small, you thought that it was something that you did that got that love back. Your child mind stayed trapped in that cycle, in that circuit, thinking, aha, if I just do this, then my dad will love me again. If I just get straight A's, if I just am perfect and never in a bad mood and always cheerful, then my dad will love me. In reality, my dad had some mental health issues. He had anxiety and depression. He was overwhelmed from my brother, being handicapped and from being overstimulated and his own childhood. My dad had so much going on that had nothing to do with me. So whether I was the noisiest, craziest kid in the world, he would or would not love me based on him. Whether I was the most perfect. And my sister and I, we were awesome. We were perfect. And it didn't matter. And the way that you become a healthy adult is you start to recognize that it does not matter. No matter who you are, no matter what you do. Hey, Peggy, no matter how perfect you are or how bad you are, it's about finding people and aligning yourself with people who understand love, who have the ability to love. And when you do that, that's how you get more love in your life. It's not about keep trying to get love from people who are incapable of it. That will make you crazy and depressed. Hey, Yvonne, it's about finding the people and attracting the people and keeping the people out who can't love you, having boundaries of love. I will love you because I love everybody, but only a few miles away. You need to be a few miles away, and then I can love you. I can't love you any closer. Many times that's how we have to look at it. We bring loving people into our lives. We have boundaries for the people who don't love themselves so that they stay far enough away that they don't make us crazy. And we learn how to manage our own emotions and manage how we feel, to take back that power of how we feel by our exercise and our vitamin D and our water and our choices of who we hang around, and whether we do energy work and whether we get body work and whether we surround ourselves with beauty or whether we plant our flowers where we can see them, where it makes us happy in the middle of the yard. We are responsible for how we feel, and they are responsible for how they feel, which is why and how you do not take narcissism personally. Hey, Ian, okay? So here's your homework assignment for today. I want you to take one situation that irritates the crap out of you, okay? And I want you to look at it, and I want you to pretzel your mind and wrap your mind around why it has nothing to do with you. It literally has nothing to do with you. I want you to look and send your subconscious out into the world and say, oh, this has nothing to do with me because, Mercury's still going to be in the shadows for the next 3 weeks, and this obviously affects the person. Or maybe it has nothing to do with me because the weather has changed and they deal with sensory, with getting depressed, seasonal depression. So I want you to look for ways and reasons why someone else's mood and someone else's attitude or even treatment of you has nothing to do with you. And when you start building this muscle, when you start practicing it and looking at situations as in, really, this has nothing to do with me. I mean, you can influence it. Don't get me wrong. You totally are not helpless. You can influence a situation, but you are, let's say, 1/10 of what's going on. The other 9/10 for somebody has to be in alignment too, or at least the majority, so that they can get back control. So I want you to look at a situation, find those 9 things that have nothing to do with you, that you cannot influence, that you cannot control, that are tipping the scales for this thing or person or situation to irritate you, okay? And then own that and then do something to not be irritated. Go for a walk. Sit in some sunshine if you can find it. Listen to some great music. Do something that makes you feel pleasure, okay? So that you are the positive impact and not the negative impact on someone clearly who is struggling with pain and suffering, okay? Cool. So if you feel stuck, if you need some help, I'm offering calls for people or messages. Let me know. I do coaching programs and 3-month coaching programs for women who feel stuck and who need some support, because you really cannot do this alone. That was one of my biggest lessons. If you try to get through this stuff all by yourself, you are going to be exhausted. You're going to be overwhelmed and you will not be able to do it. We all need community. We all need to support one another to get through these very taxing, difficult world that we live in anymore, okay? And we've lost that. So it's time to come together. So have a great rest of your day, and I will see you tomorrow, which will be Friday. Bye.